The biggest fundamental is to play your opponent.
It's really about figuring out what they're doing and then adjusting to it.
The single most important thing about winning heads up is knowing whether your opponent is weak or strong.
To not get rattled, just maintain your focus.
To hold your composure.
You guys stay calm at all times.
50% of the time you're in position and 50% of the time you're out of position. And remembering that and kind of adjusting your play accordingly is probably the most important thing you need to do.
Hand values drastically decrease. You don't have to have a whole lot to win.
Often you're forced to play just about any two cards, and being aggressive and taking control of the betting and putting your opponent to a test is really critical to success.
That is the number one fundamental. You've got to be raising your opponent, dicing around. You cannot just wait till you make hands.
You have to be willing to die in order to survive. When the blinds get high, the only way you can really screw up is by being too passive and too careful.
You have to fight hard for those antes, and the only way to do it is by being very aggressive.
When you get too aggressive and you lose a couple of hands and you start playing too loose, that's, I think, the cardinal sin of playing heads up.
Be aggressive. If you can't be aggressive, be aggressive.
Daniel's line about being willing to die to live was often used by the late Amir Vahidi, a very well-liked member of the poker community who passed away earlier this year.
Exciting hands here.
Unexpectedly.
Yeah.
You really did. Good coverage.
Thank you.
Wow. Just the way the cards played out.
Yeah, I know.
It was still.
GoDaddy.com Pocket Cam shows Annie's king tray.
I was playing, and I was kind of playing.
It was pretty mesmerizing.
She raises to 9,000.
Yeah.
I was a little preoccupied.
Yeah, with your own stuff.
Dennis with 10-7. He calls.
Again, every pot that Annie's playing on the button, she is raising regardless of what two cards she has.
Duke pairs her king. Dennis pairs his 10 and checks.
If you can run like this, why not raise every button, right? You got your opponent with middle pair, you with top pair.
Annie bets 15,000. Dennis calls. Annie improves to 2-pair with the tray.
Dennis check called down in a similar spot earlier in this match. He had 10-8 on a queen-high flop, queen paired on the end, and he tried to 3-barrel him. Now, in context, he can't expect Annie to take this sort of line on two separate occasions, bluffing down, so he's going to fold here. I like this play from Dennis Phillps, applying what he's learned from an earlier hand to make his decision here. Seems proud of himself.
He does, or at least proud of what Annie was able to accomplish. The featured table, there's Eric Seidel, who's overcome a half-decade of heads-up futility to reach the semifinals.
This is the 6th annual National Heads Up Poker Championship Drawing Party, presented by GoDaddy.com.
Eric Seidel.
Eric is 0-5 in the first round of this event. Oh, no. We didn't do you any favors, Eric. Defending Heads Up Poker champion, Huck Seed.
I told him if he wins this event 3 times in a row, we'll have the same record.
Well, I have a little extra incentive. I'd love to win so I can send him the text, 1 down, 2 to go.
Brevity, one of the undoubted attributes of an Eric Seidel text.
Scotty up 90,000 in chips at the moment.
Seidel is surprisingly hilarious. If you follow him on Twitter, he's got some funny stuff over there. And you wouldn't know it because when you see him at the table, he's all business.
Okay, baby.
Queen deuce suited for Seidel. He calls. Scotty only looks at the deuce of spades and checks.
Is the deuce of spades that discouraging? Come on.
As far as we can tell, neither player connects on the flop.
Scotty guaranteed at least a spade draw. Might have a flush.
Not just any flush, the nut flush.
This is why we look at our cards, kids. Lesson 1A.
Scotty bets 20,000.
Small overbet there with about 6 cents in the pot.
Scotty's nut flush gets absolutely no action. Seidel folds.
You know, man, my hand is just too big every time, and then you're just getting away with it.
Speaking of getting away with it, why is Scotty showing again?
You know, baby, I thought that's your flop for sure, right there.
That could have been very ugly. Slightly different flop.
It hasn't happened yet, but if you give a guy like Eric Seidel enough free looks at your hole cards, it's going to come back and bite you where the sun don't shine. Mark my words.
He You can bet he is the human sponge. Taking all that information in. Win with 5 deuce, limps in. Eric with Jack Trey raises to 16,000. Scotty with a quick fold.
Another one of those out-of-position big raises from Eric Seidel. This time it works out.
Seidel restacking his chips while over at table 4, Dennis Phillps still holds the lead over Annie Duke. Jack 10 for Annie.
Made it 9,000.
Raises to 9,000. Dennis with ace-7. He calls. Annie pairs her 10. Dennis pairs his 7 and checks.
Both players with a piece of the pie. Annie's got the better slice.
Duke bets 14,000. Phillps calls. Turn pairs the board. Dukes, 10s, and deuces in front. Both players check.
Check on the turn.
9 of clubs. Annie's 2 pairs still best.
Might be wondering why she would check the turn there. I really don't think there's anything she's folding to on the end.
Go 7.
So she's really just trying to induce Dennis to bet.
He did. She called. And now she's a little bit richer. Annie Duke focused on the semifinals over at Pure. Their concentration is on the dance floor. As we return to Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, getting right back to the semifinal action. Annie Duke moving into the lead over Dennis Phillps as the blinds have risen to 3 and 6,000.
She's fought her way back.
Pocket 10s for Duke.
Right,
16,000.
She raises to 16,000. King deuce suited for Dennis. He calls.
And again, both of these players have raised virtually every single button, so there's no way to truly narrow their range when they're in position.
Top set for Annie.
She could have 7 deuce for all Dennis Phillps knows, though.
He checks. Annie bets 21,000. Dennis quickly folds.
Completely bricking on that flop, but if Dennis hadn't, he still would have no idea where Annie was at. She's playing the first 2 stages of the hand identically in almost every situation.
Great match at table 4 going on, but it appears the clock stopped over at the featured table. Eric Seidel going walkabout.
I think Scotty finally made good on that bathroom break threat.
I can't see the chips at all. I have no idea what they have.
We can. Scotty has an 80,000 chip lead. Match continuing at table 4. Ace-Jack suited for Phillps.
I'm guessing he's not going to limp.
Good bet on your part. He raises to 16,000. 6 deuce suited for Annie. A quick look, and she folds. You saw Annie's interest a moment ago on the other table. That's because she and Eric Seidel are close friends, but she's running from him when it comes to heads up.
I've been saying to Eric, every time you win, it gives me extra motivation because I don't want to let you have a better record than me in this.
Eric Seidel is sent to the rail yet again. The poker legend who owns 8 bracelets somehow hasn't managed to win a single match here in 5 attempts.
It would bring shame to the whole Duke family if she won less matches than I did. So that's what's motivating her and keeping her up.
That'll do it for Annie Duke, and for the 4th time in 5 years, she's been eliminated in the first round.
I can't let fish cake, have a better record than me. That would be the definite.
A lot of shark meat in a Seidel fish cake, I'll tell you that.
Bragging rights indeed on the line, not to mention some cash.
$125,000 guaranteed to all participants in the semifinals. Runner-up takes home a $250,000 and a cool $500,000 to this year's champ.
With 9-6, Annie raised to 16,000. Dennis with 7-5 calls.
Not the sexiest poker hands on earth.
Phillps with the gut shot straight draw. Annie with the bigger spade.
No action on the flop. Phillps adds a wheel draw.
Check.
Definitely could have bet there if he wanted to try to pick up what seems to be a dead pot.
Annie bets 21,000.
She's got the gut shot straight draw to go with that spade now.
Dennis calls.
That's a pretty big call from Dennis. If he's going to bother to continue with the hand after checking, I'd much prefer that he pulled off a semi-bluff check raise and take a chance on winning it right there.
Dukes 9 high is the best hand.
And that's exactly why you check raise the turn if you're Dennis Phillps. 7 high with no showdown value whatsoever.
Awesome.
Oh, don't you love this game?
That's a laugh. I couldn't figure out what you were calling with unless I gave you the 5 of spades. I would have had to give you the 5 of spades exactly, right?
I know, it's one of those.
So I was like, whatever. I think if you could, you could call.
Yeah, it's bad playing my part. I started to re-raise you. I did.
Yeah.
I should have.
It would have worked.
Well, live and learn, as they say.
Yeah.
20/20 hindsight.
16.
Phillps with 10-8 raises to 16,000.
You always feel smart in retrospect. I raise.
Ace-king suited for Annie. She announces a re-raise.